Backstage reaction to the AEW release of Ace Steel, plus an update on CM Punk, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks All Elite Wrestling future. Santana and Ortiz reportedly are not on speaking terms. Got much more details on their reported falling out. Dynamite ratings are in. They defeated NXT, but not by as much as you would think. MJF reportedly does not want to turn babyface. Plus, AEW officials recently spoke to Athena after a physical match on a recent episode of Dark. Hangman Adam Page, an update on his concussion, and the latest on Jeff Hardy. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, especially with everything going on this week. The biggest, arguably, development from the All Out situation since the initial incident and the suspensions. We're going to talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about Santana and Ortiz. We're going to talk about MJF, Dynamite ratings. There's loads to get into, so let's get straight into the news story, starting off with the reaction to the firing of Ace Steel from All Elite Wrestling. Now, this comes from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, who's providing some more details on this. And of course, if you missed yesterday's news, we did cover this, but Ace Steel is gone from All Elite Wrestling. It was first broken by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, was later confirmed by PW Insider as well. Now, from Fightful's end, Sean Ross Sapp's end, they asked in AEW, in an official capacity, who don't usually respond to inquiries regarding employment status of their talent. However, word was emanating from the recent Cincinnati AEW tapings this week that Ace Steel was indeed gone from the company. Now, much of the roster reportedly has remained quiet since the incident at All Out, whether it be on the record, off the record, or just in the background. Now, this became even more the case after that recent talent meeting that was led by Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, and Chris Jericho that encouraged talent to keep their dirty laundry in-house. Now, the ironic thing is, after that incident, after that meeting rather, that was led by Jericho, Danielson, and Moxley, we still had that incident involving Andrade El Idolo and Sammy Guevara, which a lot of people were unhappy about because it was in direct contrast to the recent meeting, which everyone actually felt quite positive about. Now, after word emerged of Ace Steel finally being let go from the company, reportedly more talent and staff were willing to talk to Fightful about their feelings on the situation. Now, according to Sean Ross Sapp, the unanimous consensus is that the move was expected, and if there wasn't constantly pending legal ramifications, this would have been done the week of the incident or just days after the incident itself. By the time the following week's tapings had happened, most everyone thought they were effectively done working with Ace Steel, who actually had to be fined, of course, just a few days before, for using coarse language on television just days before the incident in question. Now, Steel's proximity to CM Punk throughout the situation has complicated matters, but seemingly that has now been resolved because Ace Steel is gone from the company and AEW has decided to make a definitive decision regarding his status with All Elite Wrestling. Now, another long-time talent that had been on good terms with Ace Steel said that the writing was on the wall immediately after the situation when the bite marks on Kenny Omega were still visible. Of course, we've done a couple of videos on those bite marks showing pictures, videos of Omega's recent trip to Japan, where when he wears a t-shirt, you can see a visible bruise in the shape of a bite mark. Now, Omega, as I mentioned, carried the aforementioned bite marks with him the whole next week through a trip to Japan. Now, a veteran spoke with Fightful on background and said that releasing Ace Steel was a no-brainer decision and that bringing him back into the locker room with or without CM Punk would have caused a ton of frustration. Now, another talent said that the situation hadn't been much of a talking point in recent weeks and really wasn't after the talent meeting that we spoke about previously. Now, one talent said, quote, biting people bad, as the entirety of their background comment on the situation. There were rumors, of course, in the days that followed that Steel was done with AEW, but obviously that couldn't be as cut and dry due to the situation that surrounded it with these possible legal ramifications. Now, when Ace Steel was released yesterday, that realistically has marked the most movement on this entire situation. Really, that's the most movement that we've seen. Now, the Elite was referenced on commentary for the first time since the incident Tuesday night on Dynamite. CM Punk was featured in a Ring of Honor title montage, and the Young Bucks appeared in an AEW Rampage commercial. Now, none of them have been added back to the Dynamite intro. However, Tuesday was also the first time we've heard movement or optimism on potential returns, though that was left very vague by AEW and by the people that Fightful reportedly spoke to. Fightful were told that the parties involved are more in contact with All Elite Wrestling now than they'd been for a while before, but the context of which the conversations were happening, or the contact was happening, was left absent. So, what we're hearing now is finally some movement on this. Finally, we're hearing possibly some... Again, movement, some developments here. Ace Steel is gone from the company. According to that report via Sean Rossap, we're seeing contact between AEW and the parties involved. Now, we don't know specifically which parties, but one would assume that is Kenny Omega, that is Matt Jackson, that is Nick Jackson, and that is CM Punk too. And if that is the case, you could argue that would be a positive from AEW, because realistically, the best case scenario for Tony Khan and AEW, because he's invested a lot of money into these talents, the best case scenario is that they all return, they all put their differences aside, and they all make money for AEW. I don't see how that's possible given the incident, particularly on Punk's side. But again, it's within question whether CM Punk's ever going to appear inside of an AEW ring, let alone a pro wrestling ring ever again. So when it comes to Punk's future, as I mentioned, the fact that he's injured and the fact that he's out of action for 9 months actually is almost a blessing in disguise for him, I think, a little bit, because he has time away from the company. He has time away from the incident. Time does heal all wounds, as it were. CM Punk did negotiate with WWE or have talks about a WWE return prior to signing with AEW. That is proof, if anything, that time does heal all wounds. Now, CM Punk is not going to go back to WWE, especially with Triple H in charge, but my point is there that when you're removed from the incident for a period of time, anything's possible. Things can get patched up. I think that you could argue when it comes to someone biting someone, a producer, the writing's on the wall. You have to go at that point. We're still in the realm of possible legal ramifications as well, as the report mentions. Realistically, that's why it took so long to release and fire Ace Steel. AEW wanted to be 100% certain that legally they weren't in a situation where they could get in trouble, essentially. And clearly their legal team or those overseeing this investigation or whoever finally gave the call to AEW, yeah, you can fire Ace Steel. There's grounds for termination. You're not going to have any trouble if they come back to us with any legal ramifications. If, whatever party it is, maybe it's safe, let's say allegedly it is CM Punk, if he came back and, filed for wrongful dismissal or whatever it may be, AEW could have the paperwork or have the proof that, the grounds for dismissal were valid, etc., etc., etc. So, do I expect to see Punk back anytime soon? Of course not. He's injured. The Bucks and Omega, previously I'd said that I don't expect to see them back in an AEW ring before the end of the year, and possibly it'd be next year. But if we're seeing a bit of movement, that's a positive. But look, it's the 20th of October today, so we're entering the winter months. There could be there's a couple months left of the year. Maybe we see him back, but I'm still not sure. Again, this is movement, but there still isn't a lot of it. And I still think there's a lot more to develop in this situation when it comes to the fallout of Brawlout. Let's move on and talk about Santana and Ortiz, one of the best tag teams in AEW history, certainly. But there is a rift between Proud and Powerful. On Keeping It 100, Conan was candid about the issues between Santana and Ortiz. Quote, "They ain't talking to each other," Conan said, adding that it breaks his heart to see the two men not seeing eye to eye. He said, quote, "I've said it before, they're like my sons. I heard it almost got physical with Santana and Kingston over this, describing the tense situation as not a good look. According to Conan, Proud and Powerful could have gone to WWE and really effing blown it up, but the woeful separation has halted their professional momentum. I can see Santana when his contract was up leaving," Conan said. "Ortiz is very chill, laid back, and Santana is more of a hothead. The rift apparently comes down to outlook. Ortiz is like, hey, they ain't doing nothing with us, and Santana is like, they ain't doing shit with us." Now, that appears to be the only thing the former Impact World Tag Team Champions can agree on right now. Ortiz was like, hey, we're getting paid, we're being taken care of, and is very happy in his role, and Santana wants more. Now, Santana, of course, is currently recovering from a major knee injury. It happened during the Blood and Guts match back in June, when Santana and Ortiz teamed with Eddie Kingston, Claudia Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta to defeat the Jericho Appreciation Society's Chris Jericho, Angelo Parker, Matt Menard, Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, and Daniel Garcia. It's not the first time we've heard about these rumors of a rift between the tag team. Look, you can see both sides of it. Certainly you can. You can see Santana saying, we're not being booked. We're not really doing anything. We've clearly fallen down the pecking order. Believe in ourselves. Back ourselves. We can go elsewhere. Let's try and go to WWE. And Ortiz is like, well, no, look, we've got a contract here. We're getting paid probably more than they've ever earned in their career. And we should see what could happen. You know, we were here very, very early on. Of course, they debuted at All Out. They were on the very first episode of Dynamite. They're somewhat AEW originals. And at the time, they decided to sign with AEW over WWE. So you can understand both sides of it. Is that enough to fall out over? I'm not sure. It would appear that there is more to it. And of course, this is Conan, so you never know how accurate it all is. But we have heard that before. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, it's a bit like the Punk situation. Time away might be a good thing to try and repair this. I do believe, and maybe Ortiz's mindset might change a little bit now with the new regime that's in charge of WWE. If Santana and Ortiz went to WWE, I think they'd do very well for themselves. I think tag team wrestling is being more featured, certainly, within WWE right now. And again, whenever their contracts come up, possibly we could see a situation where they do make the jump. Maybe they'd be more comfortable. But you could argue, what happens then? Is the tension, is the fallout already too bad? Can they reconcile or can't they? Time will tell when it comes to that situation. Dynamite, of course, this week was on a Tuesday, and the Wednesday Night Wars were back for 1 week only, and it was a really interesting result, actually. Really interesting, because the same pattern followed from the Wednesday Night Wars that Dynamite came out victorious, but it was closer than certainly I thought, and a massive drop-off from last week for AEW, certainly. Now, changing from Wednesday night to Tuesday night clearly affected viewership for AEW Dynamite, but it still managed to defeat NXT in the ratings department. WrestleNomics released viewership information, and Dynamite drew 752,000 average viewers, which is down significantly, down 23% from the previous week. The key demographic also suffered due to the day change, as Dynamite was watched by 339,000 viewers aged 18 to 49, which totaled a 0.26 18 to 49 demographic rating, which is once again down 18% from the last week. Meanwhile, NXT, which found itself up against Dynamite for the first time since April of last year, was down just 8% in total viewership, and it was watched by 676,000 average viewers. The key demographic had 235,000 viewers aged 18 to 49, totaling for a 0.18 18 to 49 demographic rating. That number is a positive one, actually, as it's the highest rating NXT has seen in the demographic since August 16, and up 18% from last Tuesday. Now, the head-to-head battle notwithstanding, there was a lot of sports that was watched on television on Tuesday night, including the regular season return of the NBA and 2 MLB playoff games, so there was strong competition there as well, so certainly that could be a situation. Now, ranking-wise, Dynamite came in at number 8 for cable originals in the key demographic, and broadcast primetime at place number 21. NXT was 4 spots behind for cable originals at number 12 and was at 28 in broadcast primetime. So I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that AEW won. The expectation, could you imagine what would happen? My goodness, if NXT won that, people would definitely be talking. But I expected to be a bit of a drop-off, competition, your changing of the nights. But I probably expected still your high 800s, maybe, low 900s, something like that. For there to really only be, 100,000 in it? I think about, or less than 100,000 in it. About 90,000, maybe a bit less than that. 80,000 viewers in it between AEW and NXT. It's surprising. That is surprising. I mean, we saw during the Wednesday Night Wars, we saw AEW have a much wider margin of a victory over AEW over NXT rather in terms of viewership and definitely in terms of the key demo. They dominated NXT in terms of the key demographic. I'm not sure NXT ever defeated Dynamite in the 18 to 49 category, but to me, it's difficult to provide analysis on this one because the layman looking at it would say, wow, they went head to head with NXT and NXT took a ton of viewers away from them, which is possible. I think you can't overlook that they went up against very strong sports competition as well. So people that maybe regularly watch only AEW but are sports fans, they suddenly went, well, I'm going to watch the sport because I prefer watching the sport. So it was a really fascinating one. I think part of it is the sports competition, but also I think there were some people that said, no, I'll see what NXT's got to offer. And that's fascinating. It really is. Now, I don't think because of this, NXT anytime soon is going to move back to Wednesdays. Frankly, I'd be very surprised. But you know for a fact, there'll be some people within WWE going, look, we lost, but we might have taken viewers away. Maybe that slows the growth of AEW. Who knows? I don't want to see a return of the Wednesday Night Wars because the internet's toxic as it is, but certainly interesting. MJF recently has teased, well, not so much, but the crowd want MJF to be a babyface. Now, of course, he's arguably the most popular heel in AEW right now. How many wrestlers can refer to his followers as devil worshippers without any fear of retribution? But in recent weeks, we've seen a slightly different, more vulnerable side of MJF, a side which some believe is leading or building up towards a babyface turn. Now, of course, this week on Dynamite, he announced he'll be facing Jon Moxley at Full Gear. He'd be cashing in his Casino Battle Royale poker chip, but not in the heelish cowardice way. He said, no, I'm not going to cut any corners. I'm going to face you at Full Gear. In his promo with William Regal, he started off as a heel, but by the end they were cheering him and booing William Regal. On top of that as well, with MJF, the week prior when he faced Wheeler Yuta in the 3-year anniversary, what happened then? Wheeler Yuta said, shake my hand. He was going to do it before Stokely Hathaway came down to the ring and prevented that from happening. So certainly a lot of people have said, does this mean actually we're going to see some kind of babyface turn? Now, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter's Dave Meltzer, MJF isn't exactly eager to shift his character's alignment. He said, quote, I know he doesn't want to turn. Now, Meltzer then had the opinion that, of course, at some point he's going to turn. He also stated that MJF's rejection of good behavior is generating revenue for the promotion, which currently has more top babyfaces than top heels. And in any event, audiences aren't growing tired of him. He said, quote, he can be a heel and they can cheer for him. That's fine, he continued. Ric Flair was like that his whole career. Whoever the people cheer for, that's fine, as long as the dynamic is there that people want to pay for tickets. I don't care if they cheer both guys. I don't care if they boo both guys. I don't care if they boo the babyface. If they're paying for tickets and they're watching the TV, the crowd can do whatever they want. I think, and I'm not saying MJF is Stone Cold Steve Austin, by the way, but my way to book MJF is listen to the audience, turn him babyface, because the crowd wants to cheer for him, and because the way this has been positioned is that it's kind of MJF versus the company. People that have been holding MJF down, whether it's Tony Khan not realizing his talent and not paying him the money he deserves, or William Regal turning him down back in the day and not giving him his dream or crushing his dreams and all that kind of stuff. That's really the promos he's been cutting. You all didn't believe in me. I believed in me, and I'll prove you wrong. And that's a babyface promo, but it's coming from a very villainous heel. And the way they should book it, in my opinion, same as Stone Cold Steve Austin. You don't change the character. You don't change anything. The only thing that changes is the opponents. That's it. You don't. MJF doesn't start, pandering to the crowd, or he decides that I'm not going to, I know he said I'm not going to take shortcuts, but Steve Austin was a heel that got cheered. That was it. Just the opponents chase. Suddenly he started going up against heels instead of babyfaces. But then when he went up against babyfaces, he still acted like a heel, but he was cheered because he was cool. MJF is suddenly becoming cool. So nothing should change. And I know the concern would be, and it's the worst booking decision they always make, someone gets over as a heel, they're popular, and they go, right, we've got to turn them babyface because the crowd loves them. But then they start acting like a babyface. And that's what fans don't want to see. People love the bad guy. People love to cheer the bad guy. They love to cheer a badass. And that should be the case with MJF. So I think that you don't change the character. You don't change the promos. All you change is the opponents. And he just keeps Again, proving to people you shouldn't have held me down. I told you I'm better than you and you know it, and now you are going to know it. That's why. So I can understand the hesitation by MJF, but hopefully, as I mentioned, they just go with it, but they don't change too much. Hangman Page, of course, Hangman Page suffered that concussion on Dynamite, and there was a lot of concern there. Now, since AEW's statement confirming the severity of Hangman's injury, additional updates have been provided. The latest comes from Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. He paints a positive picture regarding Page's status. He said, quote, Page is feeling all right and is very appreciative of how everyone handled the situation. In addition to that, Hangman Page has also posted a statement on social media saying, quote, hey, thanks everyone for being so nice. I'm doing all right and feeling good today. Had a nice panini for lunch thanks to Paul, Medical, Mox, Brandon, BJ, etc. Insert introspective yet merciless quote about unfinished business here. He then responded to that saying, Jeff, you didn't put in a good quote. Fix it, please. So seemingly Hangman's okay. He's obviously had that concussion. I wouldn't expect him to be back in the ring in the next couple of weeks, but the most important thing, he's okay. Watching it live, you had real concerns something really, really bad had happened, and I say it's only a concussion, but it could have absolutely been a lot worse, so that's positive when it comes to Hangman Page. This is an interesting story regarding Athena. Now, a match on AEW Dark from Toronto went awry and clearly caught the eye of many fans. A lot of people were posting clips on social media about this. Now, the match in question was between Athena and local standout Jody Threat, and it got a lot of attention for reasons that weren't evident at the start of the match. Now, Threat got a great ovation. Athena ended up working as a heel opposite Threat, but ended up getting too aggressive in the ring for AEW management. Now, there was a spot where Jody Threat slipped on what was her comeback, and Fightful are reporting, Sean Rossat is reporting, that Jody Threat was a little lost and had asked Athena what was next in the match to get back on track, and the match devolved into a lot more physicality because of that. Now, several were quick to note that while they're not confident Jody Threat has no problem handling that physicality, that it shouldn't have happened anyway, and the communication should have been clearer. Those close to Athena indicated that each woman were approached by management after the match to make sure everything was okay. One source familiar with the situation believed that it should have been an opportunity to lead by an example as opposed to letting it devolve. Now, those close to Athena believe that this was the way the match was going because of her having to switch to the heel role due to Jody's babyface reaction. Now, Fightful didn't hear of any confrontation or anything of the sort between the two females after the match. It was reiterated to them that not everything that is being microanalyzed on social media was a result of this situation. Fightful are also saying that Jody Threat herself didn't complain about how the match went and hasn't spoken on the match, the situation, or indicated of anything out of the norm publicly. All that Fightful have heard from her side of the things is that she's not big on all the attention that emanates from situations such as these, and generally tries to keep her head down to avoid the political aspects of wrestling, which means she said that to Fightful. Now, we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. I saw the clips. I didn't see the match in question, so I'm not too, in place to comment on it too much. But I did see the clips, and I thought that looked a bit stiff. And again, it's difficult for me to really judge it too much. I would say that if that report is accurate and Jody Threat was lost, then it should have been upon Athena to, communicate, get it back on track, not let it devolve into just to physicality and let things get off the rails. But it would appear that in terms of the talent, they're not too frustrated about it. So we shouldn't be either. Finally, an update on Jeff Hardy and his legal situation. Jeff Hardy's rescheduled pre-trial hearing is set for, which was set for yesterday, has been pushed back for a second time, which could now ultimately lead to Hardy not facing trial at all. According to PW Insider, Hardy's attorney filed for a motion yesterday asking for another delay, which prosecutors involved in the case ultimately agreed to. The motion seemed to indicate that both sides are currently working on a plea agreement that would prevent the case from going to trial. The motion included notes from Hardy's attorneys that said they had recently provided extensive mitigation materials to the Council of the State and that the parties require additional time to negotiate a pre-trial resolution. After the court gave its okay, a rescheduled pre-trial hearing was set for November 17. Hardy has pleaded not guilty to the charges he faces. Of course, that's about giving himself more time to work on possibly a plea deal. So it's likely Hardy will reach a plea deal, which will result in this not going to trial. What that plea deal will consist of, we'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.